At the turn of the 20th century, China was ruled by Empress Cixi, who belonged to the Manchu dynasty. Instead of improving the conditions of the Chinese citizens, she was an autocrat who did nothing to solve the country's devastating poor social conditions, economic situation, and political corruption. These conditions were limited from improvement due to the cultural mindset that was bound by tradition.
Social conditions. Poverty was rampant among the peasant population
due to powerful regional landlords who exploited the peasants for their grain and women. Farmers did not own their own lands, and many environmental disasters contributed to widespread famine. Economic conditions. China was primarily an agrarian society. In the small cities, there was a lack of industrialization development because they believed Western nations had nothing to offer. Due to their unwillingness to change, other Asian countries such as Japan were able to become industrial powers through trade with Western powers. Political conditions. Despite the officials' and emperors' refusal to change, many Western ideas were entering China, such as democracy. At this time, Chinese people realized their nation's weakness in comparison to other foreign powers, such as through the Opium War, which they had lost to Britain.
People were unsatisfied with the government system as a result of these conditions, which led to the Boxer Rebellion of 1900 in an attempt to end foreign control and put an end to the Manchu dynasty. Cixi had to seek the help of foreign armies to put down the rebellion.
New ideas continued to enter China through trade contacts with foreigners, Christian missionaries, travelers from foreign countries, and Chinese travelers outside. This is demonstrated in school, where Chinese students began to learn Latin.
Now enters son Yat-sen, who is the man that spearheaded the attempts at revolution in order to turn China into a democracy. He had 3 principles.
An elected democracy. 2, nationalism, where China rules herself and there's no foreign domination. And 3, socialism, where people's welfare is improved and everyone has a basic standard of living.
Short-term causes. This brings us to the 1911 revolution, in which the 11th attempt at a revolution finally succeeded. The emperor, the 6-year-old Puyi, and the regency, his uncle, has dismissed many good officials, including the chief military commander of North China.
Both the poor and the rich were discontent, so the peasants in Sichuan, along with Sun's supporters, rebelled. 15 out of 18 provinces and the provisional government in Nanjing joined the rebellion. This made up the Republican Army, which fought the Qing Army, which was old-fashioned. Yuan Shikai was recalled and made prime minister and commander-in-chief, so he captured the rebels, drove them south, and negotiated with them. Yuan became president, and a national assembly was formed with the intent of making China a democracy. However, Yuan backstabbed the entire process and became a military dictator, which spiked dislike towards him.
Japan heaved 21 demands to China, asking for factories and threatened China with war. Yuan, not wanting war, accepted the demands, which caused China to lose face and hence lost him great support. When Yuan gained power, he made himself a military dictator and closed the National Assembly with the intention of making himself emperor. The opposition to him grew through GMD, military generals who did not want to lose authority, and the Japanese. Yuan Shikai died in 1960.
After his death, there was no one leader popular enough to lead, and the central government in Beijing collapsed. His successor, Li Yuanhan, was unable to keep control, and China fell under the rule of hundreds of regional warlords.
Life under the warlords was extremely harsh. Peasants experienced famines, abuse, poverty, theft, destruction of farms by armies, attacks, and conscription.
Sun at the time was trying to reunite China. Sun needed foreign aid, and the only country willing to help was Communist Russia, on the condition that a Communist Party was founded and worked with.
Sun died in 1925, and power fell to Kai-shek, who began a conquest to reunite China. He begins his march to the north to unite China, but in Shanghai encounters opposition from the CCP.
Now they start fighting. Dun dun dun.